Hello everybody and welcome back to my channel. My name is Becca, and if you are new around here, this is my channel where we talk about all the houseplant things. I've been doing this for a couple of years now, more than a couple of years really, and I've got a lot of really wonderful plants in my collection, some of which have been around for quite some time. So I started collecting houseplants in 2018 in my house that I shared with 5 roommates in college, and surprisingly enough, it was at the tail end of college that I started collecting. None of them ever said anything negative about the amount of plants that I had. I want to say in a span of a couple of months, I went from having 0 to probably 30 plants in my little spaces in my bedroom and also in the bathroom. Some of these plants have traveled with me from that very first house that I had houseplants in, and I'm so excited to show them to you today. So let's just get into it. So I'm a little bit muddy on the timeline of which plants came first because there were 3 that came basically around the same time. But what I always say was my first house plant was Miss Figus burgundy. This is a Figus elastica, and this is a plant that I purchased from Sprouts Farmers Market, believe it or not. And it was about this size when I bought it. I've done recently a very significant chop on it because I've had it for many years and it's put out lots of branches, and after all of the moves, it was just looking a little worse for wear. So we gave it a good chop, and it actually does have a child that has rooted successfully, I think, and it's looking really good. I'm probably going to just plant it back in with this plant. But I bought this when I was living, like I said, in that house with my 5 roommates, and I really just was kind of bit by the houseplant bug. A lot of people ask me why and how I first started collecting, and really what it was I was really wrapped up in the identity of being a student, and I was ending college and I didn't really know where life was going to take me, what I was going to do. It wasn't until I think it was 1 week before school started that I got a job teaching, just very randomly. I wasn't actually searching to teach that year, but it just sort of fell in my lap. So it was really cool when I got into plants because it was during a very formative and transformative and transient time in my life, and my plants really just kept me grounded and gave me something to take care of in the midst of all of that. And also it gave me a reason to continue learning, because learning is just a huge part of who I am and what I like to do. And since I was done learning in school, I wanted to find a way to continue to learn in life, and houseplants were a huge part of that. Also, Instagram was a huge part of that. I was definitely a long time lurker on plant Instagram before I actually started my own page. I was definitely heavily influenced by people that I was seeing online that had all of their beautiful plants. And when I saw this, I was really, really excited. I actually don't remember, I'm gonna pull that leaf, it's ugly and dying, but I actually don't remember why I picked up this plant. I think maybe I had seen it online. I actually don't remember, but I do remember being really excited about it because it had a bunch of stems in it. So it was very, very full, and it was quite large at the time. So, I mean, it was the biggest plant that I had owned, because a lot of my plants previous to that, or maybe right after that, were all cuttings, which have funny stories in and of themselves. And it's so beautiful even to this day. It definitely could use a good dusting and maybe some clearing of some more leaves, but my ficus tend to not do amazing in the winter time. They kind of hold on, but in the summertime is where they really thrive and look super beautiful. And this plant in particular was home to many a tree frog at our house in Missouri. We lived on wooded acreage, so we had lots of different wildlife, and they absolutely loved this plant right here. So I'm excited to see what wildlife move in on it this year. It's planted in a very large terracotta pot, and honestly, putting it in this big pot was a game changer for this plant. I feel like it finally had room to just grow, because ficus are trees. When you see the huge trees in California, in Hawaii, those are oftentimes some version of a ficus. Not every time, but a lot of the time. And I think just giving it room to grow changed its life. It changed its trajectory, and it's been so much happier since I did that. Very excited for many, many, many more years to come, many more homes to come, and just, yeah, watching it grow and change over the years. So when I was in college, I did a lot of house sitting. That's probably a very staple gig job for a college student. And some of the people that I house sat for, one in particular had really, really beautiful plants. And I want to say up front that this was not an ethical thing to do. I really don't agree with this in modern day. And if somebody did this in my collection, I think I'd be pretty sad. But basically I was house sitting, I was dog sitting and plant sitting. Like they just wanted me to water them like maybe one time while they were gone. And I had no idea how to take care of plants at this point. Like I really was just learning. And I started house sitting for this one woman, and I walked into her house and she had so many plants, like so many. And I wouldn't say that it was like a super curated collection like the one that I have now. It was kind of like, she likes plants, they're growing and they're coexisting. Like it didn't feel like, now that I've seen so many other people's collections, it didn't feel like a collection that was like she was like looking for the rare plants. You know what I mean? Like she probably got cuttings from like this person and like started plants and everything else. Doesn't make what I did better, but what I did was she had this really scraggly plant and I did not know what it was, and it had a bunch of different stems and leaves going in a bunch of different directions. So I picked one that was a little bit more inconspicuous and I took one leaf. At this point, thankfully, I had learned that you needed a node, and I think that I had very minimal knowledge on all of that because, again, I was Instagram creeping a lot of the time in my spare time. So what that plant ended up doing was it rooted, and then it very quickly put out a new leaf, and then another new leaf, and then another leaf. And then it became clear to me that that plant was a Monstera deliciosa, this very one right here. So it started out from a leaf that was no bigger than my palm, and it's now this. Like, this plant is huge. I actually cannot lift it just due to the pot that it's in. If you watched my greenhouse tours video, you saw me give it like a little bit of a revamp. It has this new leaf that just came out. Like, to this day, that is one of the most formative experiences that I've had in houseplants, like watching this Monstera deliciosa go from this tiny leaf to this. It's just one of the coolest plants to watch grow, and that's why I always recommend it to beginners, because you never know what the next leaf is going to look like. And I feel like when you're new to something, and especially like if you're a person who kind of jumps around from hobby to hobby, it might be nice to have a plant that kind of keeps you on your toes. Like, you never know what it's gonna do next. Variegated plants are also really great for that. Like plants that have unique variegation on each leaf, like that, those are also really great plants for this type of thing. But anyway, eventually I ended up finding another similarly sized Monstera deliciosa on Marketplace. I think it was, like I said, a year to a year and a half after I bought my first one, or not bought, stole my first one, and I ended up potting them together, and that's what you see here. So there's 2 plants in here. Actually, I think there's actually 4 plants in here, but it originated, like my original plant is one of those 4, and I don't know which one it is. I think it's this one at the top right here, I think. But honestly, it's been so many times that I've repotted it so many times and like moved things around that I've kind of lost track of which was which. And honestly, they all look the same now, but one of those is the original plant. And I just think it's a really cool experience to watch this plant go from tiny leaf to big fenestrated leaf. Like, first they get these fenestrations, and then they get the inner fenestrations, and then they get more inner fenestrations. It's just really cool, and I would highly suggest this plant to buy in a juvenile form. Like, I've actually made a video that was plants to buy small, because they do go through like such a big change, and I believe this was one of the plants that I put in that video. I love the Monstera deliciosa so much. I have an elbow, which is right here, that I bought a couple years after that, and then I have a Thai constellation, and all 3 of these plants are definitely like in the top 10 favorite plants in my collection, because they're just the best. We're gonna slide her over so she doesn't totally steal the show, even though she would love that. And we're going to talk about the next plant, which is this Synapsis Exotica. And for this being one of the oldest plants in my collection, you really would think it would be bigger. But honestly, it has not been a plant that has widely thrived in my collection. But as you can see, it's really healthy now and doing better. It was on the wall in my plant room, like kind of high up, and so it was not getting the watering that it should have for a lot of its life. Since we've been at this house, it's a lot lower and I have less plants, so I'm able to put a lot more love and interest in it. I have just struggled a lot with leafy plants like this in the past. And it's something that I really want to be better at moving forward, because these are the plants that make such a beautiful impact in a collection. Like, look at these leaves. They're so beautiful. And even through winter, you can see that it's putting out new growth, which is so exciting. It's definitely not been a thing that it's done in the past. Like, a new leaf was honestly very rare. And I have potted in other Synapsis Exotica that I've got from like plant swaps and stuff like that in with this plant. So the original plant is in here, but this is not like fully the original plant, because it would have been one vine, and we have like, maybe not one vine, maybe it would have been like 3 of the vines, because I remember I chopped like 3 or 4 leaves to begin, and each leaf will start its own vine. And this is one where the person never said anything about me chopping it, but it would have been really noticeable that I did chop it. And now, being a plant person, I would have been so mad. Like, I would have been so annoyed at the little twerp that I trusted to watch my house who cut my plant. But they never said anything, and I don't know if they really regarded their collections the same way that I do. So maybe the plant was just a plant in their house that they watered and they didn't really keep tabs on it very much. I don't know. That's kind of what I was hoping for. But oh my gosh, there are roots coming out the bottom. We might need to address this in a coming repotting video. I kind of want to put it in a prettier pot, because since it's been in my collection for so long, this pot feels a little anticlimactic. So I might go on Etsy and see if I can find like a really beautiful ceramic handmade pot for her, because she deserves something a little better than this. So anyway, I hope that this video is a great encouragement to you to keep taking care of your plants so that they can live long, happy lives alongside us, go through all of our life stages with us. It's definitely a really sweet thing to see these plants go through so many different stages, and remember back to all of the times that I remember with them, like being in college with these plants, living in my first apartment with my husband, living in the house with my baby, like watering these plants while I'm holding my baby, and also watering them when I was pregnant with her, and now being in this home, like another life transition, and I still have the same plants. I don't know, it's just a really sweet sense of stability, and knowing that I was a big part of them continuing on their life. Like, obviously they would die if I just left them and didn't take care of them. Sometimes they get a little close. Thank you so much for watching this video. And I make plant videos once a week, so I hope that if you are interested in this type of content, you should subscribe. I am here for all of it. I'm here for all of the plant journeys. Give this video a like to let YouTube know that you like it, of course. And I will see you guys in the next one. Bye.